Welcome to Respect My Crown, a community designed to support women who desire to step into the abundance that awaits them. We know that now is the time to manifest our visions, realize our dreams, and accomplish our goals. Respect My Crown is a support system that encourages women to deepen in spirituality, sisterhood, accountability, and service. My name is Jillian J.J. Simmons, and our very special guest today is a correspondent for World News, Good Morning America, 2020, and Nightline. She is a pretty big deal, people. She is a wife, a mother to the cutest little boy ever, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She's a best-selling author of a children's book called The World is Awake, which we'll chat about in a little bit. Now, I remember her when she was an anchor on the weekends at WTHR in Indianapolis, Indiana. It has been a pleasure watching her and her career flourish over the years. Please welcome Linsey Davis to the show. How are you, Lindsay?
JJ, thank you so much for having me. I am well. I am blessed. So I'm really just thrilled to be a part of this.
You know, as many interviews as I've done in my career, I'm always so nervous to interview journalists because I feel as though you all are secretly critiquing every question that I ask.
No, not at all. You know what? I think that it's just because we are the ones that always doing the question asking. It's just like a nice change of pace to be able to just answer for
yes,
once. So.
Yes.
No critique here.
Thank you. Whew. All right, the pressure's off. I've always wondered how you cover stories. Like, do they slide across your desk, or do you have the privilege of covering stories that you're really passionate about?
I would say 95% of them are assigned, and 5%. Now that's different for everybody, but for me, I would say like 5% are the stories that I've actually pitched that end up going on the air, and then other than that, maybe I'll say 90-10. I'll say 90% I'm assigned, and 10% I actually pitch.
Oh, nice. You've done an incredible job of raising awareness around the Me Too movement with stories on Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. And I was having a conversation with an anchor that we both know, and she's a good friend of mine. And we spoke about the misconduct that we've experienced ourselves in our careers and kind of brushing it aside because, you know, while it feels uncomfortable, we didn't want to ruffle feathers, or we didn't want to cause any drama, or, you know, the men in management, sometimes it's like a boys club. But I just always wondered, like, have you ever experienced any misconduct or sexual harassment in your career?
You know, nothing. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, because how do we assign a weight to it, right? Because my initial answer was going to be nothing significant, but I have to even be, you know, kind of careful what I say with that, because I have observed, you know, men behaving badly. And it put me in I will say an awkward or an uncomfortable position, but I was able to kind of maneuver out of it in a way that I think made it like a no muss, no fuss in a way. But that's not to excuse their behavior. But I would say, fortunately, I haven't had it rise to the level that, you know, some women and many women have to deal with on a regular basis in all different walks of life, you know, different capacities as far as different industries. It really hasn't been. I mean, there have been moments where it was kind of like, hey, you know, do you want to go out for a drink? Where does that end up leading, you know? And so most of the time I'd be like, oh, I have a conflict. Unfortunately, can't make that work out. But you knew that there was the potential of a slippery slope. But sometimes the drink is just a drink, you know? But it's just kind of hard to kind of figure out and walk that fine line, especially now when you're looking at things retroactively like, I don't know what the intentions were of that person.
Oh, yeah, I know. And, you know, there's always that fine line. You know, I've heard guys in the radio industry say, well, you know, I was just flirting. What's wrong with flirting? And it's like, yeah, we're at work.
Right.
You know, there is that very fine line of guys. Like, guys are scared now to to give a compliment to a woman because they feel like it could be turned into something else.
Unfortunate. That's unfortunate because I think that they're two totally different things, right? If you are just giving somebody a compliment, or if you actually have, bad intentions, and like the most. So this was like the level where I guess it was the most that somebody was actually clearly coming on to me in an inappropriate way. It was like after a holiday party. It was when I was working in Michigan prior to working in Indiana, and the guy was we worked together, and he was helping me pump gas. And during that moment, as he was like helping me pump gas, he like leaned over to kiss me. And I said to this person, I was like, in a very calm way, like I said his name, and I was just like, you're married, and like you don't want like this like for your kids and your wife, like this isn't what you mean. And he kind of just like backed off, and then I continued to work with him, and we never had another like problem or any kind of like awkward exchange after that. But I realized that it's not at all always that easy.
Oh yeah. But I think it's good that you said that too, because I do believe we need to be able to encourage women to stand up for themselves. And if you do find yourself in an uncomfortable position, and I get it, like you said, it's not always that easy, but there are situations, I think, like that are similar to those that sometimes we might let slide. We might not address it at all, or we do it so nonchalant that, the person comes back and does it again. So we want to see women, stand firm. Dr. Blasey Ford, we, of course, recently heard the reactions to her open testimony. And I've heard men say, I'm glad that she took a stand. I've heard some guys say, and women say, why would she wait that long to just now say something? How do you feel about this new awakening where women aren't afraid to speak out, and how do you think it will impact the world?
Well, I have to say, I read, I think it was an op-ed. Somebody sent me an email from Connie Chung, and I'm pulling it up now so that I can accurately. So for those who don't remember, but Connie Chung was a former ABC correspondent, and so it was a Washington Post column that just came out, and she said, "Dear Christine Blasey Ford, I too was sexually assaulted not 36 years ago, but about 50 years ago. I've kept my dirty little secret to myself, silence for 5 decades. The molester was our trusted family doctor. What made this monster even more reprehensible was that he was the very doctor who delivered me." Anyway, she goes on saying that, she doesn't remember a lot of things, but she remembers the attack in excruciating detail. And she said she never told her parents and only told her husband years later. But I think that when you have all of these women coming forward and saying, look, it happened to me too, and look, I didn't say anything, and here's why I didn't say anything, and yes, the details surrounding it were hazy, but that doesn't mean that the attack didn't happen. I mean, I think that that's so powerful that other women are now coming forward, like a Connie Chung, who didn't even just come out. I mean, this isn't even the first wave of Me Too, because it was kind of like after Bill Cosby, we didn't really hear other women. It was like the women who were coming forward were just Cosby accusers, like isolated, as if he were the only person who had ever been accused of something like this, right? And it was like, I think like more than a year after that then, we had the New Yorker come out with the Harvey Weinstein allegations. And that was then when we had the tidal wave of, it happened to me too, across so many different industries. But I think, so here you have somebody like a Connie Chung who's coming out way after the fact saying, look, it happened 50 years ago for me. I think that that's really powerful to have this like sisterhood and women who are supporting, like a Dr. Ford in this scenario, but Dr. Ford's in an anonymous way across the country who don't have that name and don't have the recognition, who are now feeling empowered.
Lindsey, I think we've both been in our industries about the same amount of time. Has it been almost 20 years for you?
Yeah, so about 19 years.
I'm sure it hasn't been an easy ride. And in journalism news, it's likely that you have to go to a smaller city to get your foot in the door, even if you currently live or you were born in a big city, right? Was that true for you?
That was definitely true. So I'm from South Jersey, so my home market is Philadelphia, which is the fourth largest television market in the country. So there was no way I was going to be able to, get my foot in the door starting in Philadelphia. Some people are really fortunate where their home market is a small market, so they're able to kind of start there and maybe even stay there for their career. But so I did a little hopscotch in the Midwest. So I started out in Syracuse at a CBS affiliate, which was, I think at the time, like maybe around like the 81, it was like maybe the 81st largest television market.
Wow.
Then I went to Flint, Michigan, which was like 64. And then I had, for whatever reason, made this random point in my life where I said, by the time I'm 25, I want to be at a 25 or larger market. And so a few months before my 25th birthday, I went to Indianapolis, which was in fact market 25. So I got my goal just by the skin of my teeth. But
yes.
And then kind of made this goal that by the time I'm 30, I want to be at the network. And same thing happened, just like through God's grace. I just a few months before my 30th birthday got the job here at ABC News.
I love it. Yeah, I love seeing, people just grow. You know what I mean? I like to be able to say, like, I remember Lindsey when she was doing weekends. You know what I mean? It's like,
right, for
now
sure.
when I see you on TV, it just really warms my heart, and I know the work that you put in, because I know, I just know this industry very well, and it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and people think that it's very glamorous, and it's not at all. One of the ways that we find out quickly that we are human beings is by making mistakes. On your journey to greatness, have you made any big mistakes or had any embarrassing moments, and how were you able to really push through?
Sure. I mean, I think I've had a lot of embarrassing moments for sure, just because, like, by nature of the beast of doing live TV or radio or whatever, you're going to slip up or not remember a word or blank out, whatever might happen, and still could happen, right? Going forward.
Yeah.
But, the one good thing, because there are people who kind of maybe work their way up from like a desk assistant or intern or production assistant at the network and then kind of end up on air. I think that one thing that was really good for me was kind of doing that hopscotch and starting in the smaller markets, because those smaller markets are pretty forgiving. And I remember it was like I was covering, there was a fire in like the Syracuse area, and I was on the air, and it was really one of my first times being live. And there was some kind of like tone in my ear, and rather than just take my earpiece out and keep talking, I was talking about like the tone that I was hearing in my ear on live, TV. And so that was just, and even as I was doing it, I was knowing I shouldn't be talking about the tone in my ear, but then I got so distracted I couldn't remember even like any point that I wanted to make about the fire that was happening behind me.
Oh God.
But at any rate, I mean, those kinds of mistakes are fortunately, in the smaller markets, I think it's very forgiving, and you can make a lot of, when you're green, I think that people will kind of accept that, oh, this person's new and bless her heart, But again, I could call you tomorrow and be like, girl, look what happened to me yesterday, we're all just like one moment away from having that embarrassing moment on TV. But I think, just trying to get all those mistakes out of the system early, and just like anything else, it's just like the more you do something with the repetition, then chances are not only, so it's not that you won't make the mistake, but you'll be able to recover more quickly, or you'll know what to do in order to kind of sidestep, and now we're right back into the routine again.
Speaking of that, something that did go viral was your interview with Lil Wayne, and we saw Lil Wayne walk out during the interview. I know it was awkward, but was it embarrassing to you?
I didn't find it embarrassing. I really didn't. I felt almost just bad for him that that was his reaction. That was his best defense. And I really was, more than anything, I was just kind of like shocked. We're
Yeah.
like, really? This is what's happening right now? Like, why? Wait, what? Like a minute ago, we were laughing together, and you were giving me
Yeah.
props that I knew lyrics to your songs. Like, wait, what? So how did this go so left? I
Yeah.
was really kind of just like scratching my head, perplexed, like more than any other emotion. And he gave me quite an earful. So,
Oh, it comes with the
wah
job.
wah
That's why
wah.
you're
Right.
so tough. I know. Let's see, finish this sentence for me. If I knew then what I know now.
If I knew then what I know now, I would have told myself, yeah, my younger self, that I'm enough.
Mm.
And I I guess, and I might even not only, I might not qualify that just to say I would tell my younger self that. I would have to say I'd still try and remind my now 40-plus-year-old self that I'm enough.
Yeah.
I think that like so often, and maybe it comes with age where you get a little more comfortable. I mean, heard different people kind of do different iterations of like when I was in my 30s, I felt this. When I was in my 40s, and I felt this. And when I was in my 50s, I just didn't care anymore, with some expletives in there, you know. And I
Yeah.
think that there was always a part of me that was feeling like I wasn't enough, and feeling like I needed to please, and feeling like I needed to be someone else in order to please, like especially in
Mhm.
a career setting, in a career
Yes.
situation, and always just feeling like I just needed to be better than I was. And no matter what level I was getting to, it was just like I just wasn't good enough in the room. And I think that when you're always trying to be someone that you're not, then you're being inauthentic. And then quite often that is a turn off to people, right? Because you're not being true
Oh
to
yeah,
who
you're
you
not being
really
you.
are. Right. And
Mhm.
so I think I actually just have started getting that lesson, like just recently. And it's
Wow.
unfortunate. I really wish that like my 30-year-old self felt more of that. Like I said, I'm not even still to the point where I constantly, regularly feel it and believe it, but I wish that I had more of the the confidence and the comfortability, really, to just be me and be okay in the skin that I'm in.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I know so many people struggle with the same thing. I think too, when you're in this type of business, there's this pressure to be perfect. Yeah,
Mhm.
more so than than a lot of other industries, and knowing that what people think matters has
Right.
been a struggle for me too. It's like if all
Yes.
my life I've had to worry about ratings and likes and
Yes.
clicks and
Right.
all of it,
Right.
like it really wears you out, and it can be
Right.
very draining, and you feel this so much pressure from the powers that be, that everything has to be perfect,
Right.
and it's just not real. This perfection is not real. It doesn't exist. You might have your own perspective or perception of what you think perfect is, but it really isn't real. There is no
I mean,
perfect.
for me, it was kind of like, so many of us breathe this deep sigh of relief after we graduate from high school, because then it's like you're trying to be liked, you're trying to figure out who you are, right? But
Yeah.
in this kind of industry, it still comes down to quite often like who likes you
Yep.
and how many
Yeah.
people like you and how
Yeah.
popular you are, are you in the cool group? It's still like in so many ways all those things that were really challenging about high school that we're still part of now.
Oh
and
yeah.
and
It
so
is like a bigger
that
high school.
yes. And so that can be tough, but I think if you have the right outlook and perspective, you can understand what's happening, and therefore, handle and prepare yourself mentally and emotionally better for being still in that world.
That's true. Very good. I love that you don't hide your faith, and you've been vocal in other interviews about praying and, reading in your word. And I just wonder, what are some of the go-to, or a go-to scripture that helps you to push through the hard times?
Sure. Well, you know what? I got to tell you, when I moved from Indianapolis, and first of all, I was just still like so shell shocked by the prices, like how much it was going to be for a studio apartment in New York City. I was like, wait, what?
Yes.
And at the time, I think I may have even taken a bit of a pay cut number-wise, but for sure I did just cost of living-wise, moving from Indianapolis to New York initially. And so I moved in. I still hadn't sold my townhouse in Indianapolis yet. So when I moved to New York, I moved in with a cousin of mine. And the movers, I kept a lot of stuff in storage because I knew at some point I was going to be getting like probably my studio, whatever I could afford. And so I had a few boxes that the movers brought to my cousin's house, and I was kind of unpacking these boxes in my cousin's house, and I was thinking, like, what have I gotten myself into? And was this the right move? And like, I don't know that I was crying, but I may not have been shedding tears, but emotionally I was at that place where I might as well have been. I was just really distraught and really questioning what I had just done. I had a really nice, comfortable life in Indianapolis with like, a trajectory that was there was still more room to grow. And then I was kind of starting back at square one, maybe even the basement level in New York City. And I was unpacking these boxes and I was just like, what have I done? And I opened up there. I'd had a little going away event, and a guy that I went to church with, he had given me a gift, and I hadn't opened up the gift yet. And so I just was opening up these boxes and unwrapped this gift, and it was just a plaque with the scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope. And it was like right on time. It was like, and that's a very long way of telling you that has become my Jeremiah 29:11, and I ride and die together. Like that is the scripture that is my go-to, because in that moment I needed God to say, I have a plan for you, and that plan is to prosper you. It's not to harm you. And I, like, in that moment, I was like, okay, God, like, thank you for speaking to me right now in this moment. I needed to hear, and it turned out it was like the best thing for me to do was to come to New York. But I think that we all suffer with that doubt, every once in a while, and like just being unsure if you're making the right move, and so yes, Jeremiah 29:11, it speaks to me. Still, I write it in cards to people. Like to me, it's the medication for all. It's like the Band-Aid for any kind of ailment that you have. Is just knowing that God has a plan for you.
Yes. You also make a priority, for your son to grow strong in his faith also. And you've written a book called The World is Awake. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and why you wrote it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so my son was 100% the inspiration for it. And we were in the car when he was about 2 years old, and he said, Mommy, does God open up the flowers? And I was really pleasantly surprised by his curiosity and ability to also make the connection between God and nature. And I had already been thinking, like, since he was a baby, about maybe writing a children's book, but I just didn't know what the topic would be. And I felt like in that moment, he kind of planted the seed of what it would be about, because it's always been very important to me that I build a foundation of faith for my son. But and we to that point, we have like a lot of baby scripture books and Bible books at home, and he's really into David and Goliath and Jonah and the whale and all of that. But he's into it just for the storyline. He doesn't really understand God's hand, and I think it's just like too above his head at as a toddler, or even a 5 or 6 year old. And so I really was just trying to meet him and his age group where they are, and by being like, look at all of God's creations all around you. You see that butterfly, you see that snowflake, see the rainbow, see the sunrise and the sunset, and just kind of looking at all of God's the blessings that quite often as adults we overlook, that we just get too busy in our own world and mind to pay attention to a ladybug, and the things that excite a young child. And so I found, being a mom, that it really reawoke, if that's a word, my own excitement, the things that, like, when we were kids and you'd make, a snow angel or jump into a pile of leaves or whatever it is, the things that, like, my son is looking at for the first time in the world, and he's just so excited by. It's really contagious, and really, so now I'll be like, Aiden, hey, look at that squirrel, look at this, and he's really into it, and it reminds me, and like, just one quick little story. One day I was about to leave for work, and there was all this snow, and so I was kind of like, oh, this is now going to take double the time to get to work, and my commute's going to be pretty nasty. And meanwhile, my son was out with his like mitt on, and he was like, oh, this snowflake is so cool, look at this snowflake. And then we ended up looking at the uniqueness and the delicate and intricate designs of snowflakes, like things I haven't looked at a snowflake in like 35 years, No.
And, we probably complain about those snowflakes more than
exactly. Right. And so it's just kind of looking at, the wonder and beauty of God all around us that quite often, we forget, and just kind of being a reminder to our children, like, look at God all around you.
Yeah. Where can people purchase the book, Lindsey?
Oh, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. You should be able to find The World is Awake.
I love it. Oh, this is so awesome. News people are intimidating to me. You all smile like once a week or something like that. And until I saw your Instagram. And I said, oh my God, Lindsey is a marathon runner. She's smiling. She's laughing. Like, it's the one thing I do love about social media is to see this other part of people we would never see. Well, Lindsey, as we wrap up this interview, there are 4 elements that make up Respect My Crown: spirituality, sisterhood, accountability, and service. Can you just tell the listeners what does spirituality look like for you? Are you, spending time with God daily, or your prayer life? What does it look like for you?
Well, I love it because, we're on our phones and, iPads and technology so often. And I have the Holy Bible app. So every day it really holds me accountable that it'll tell you when you're, consecutively, how many streaks, how many days, how many weeks you've actually opened it up every day to read the scripture of the day. So I really try to not just read it, because sometimes I was just like reading it and then just like, okay, and now I'm opening up my app for X, Y, Z. Really kind of try and sit with it for a minute. Like, what does this mean? And how am I really applying it? And, I try and, meditate on it, even if I can, and maybe I shouldn't even say if I can, because we always can do what we want to do, but I'm trying to be better at making sure that I give it the proper time. And my husband and I do Bible studies often, not as much as we initially set out that we were going to do it weekly, and now we might just do it monthly. But I think that's really important for a marriage or for, a romantic relationship, that you have that, you're equally yoked in that way. And with my son, really getting him, he's 4, but, he sings on the church choir. And, he doesn't even, he was singing this song the other day, and he asked me, he's like, what does worship mean? And so it ends up being a really great, just teaching moment for him. And he's already, it's just, I think what we grow up in knowing is so influential, and just kind of building that foundation that is really important to me, to make sure that he gets a sense of, who God is, and that God is always there with us, and he loves us, and we can't see him, but he's there. And he's really still trying to grasp that idea. Just last night he was talking about, like, well, so he's invisible, but so we can never see him. When we die, will we see him? When we're on the airplane, will we see him? And so it's a lot of times the answers are the questions are really over my head, and I don't really know the best way to answer this. It's like I'm stumped by a 4-year-old.
Video for that. Yeah,
Right.
and it
So,
doesn't stop, Lindsay. So get ready. And my daughters are laughing.
yes,
Questions keep
yes,
coming, and they just get more intense.
yes.
What about sisterhood? Do you have a big tribe of friends or a small tribe of friends, and how do you keep the right people around you?
Yeah, so there are five of us from UVA. We all happen to be AKAs, and we're on a group thread, and we probably talk to each other, if not every day, several times a week on that thread. And that could be
Aw,
anything from what's going on with one of us personally or what's going on, with like the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation. I mean, we're just talking about, Nike or whatever the like
yes,
latest news is, or, whatever is going on with us work wise or, personally. And those are the people who I know are down for me, and I know that I'm down for them. And I think that we've just really come to count on each other. And as I continue to feel older and older as I talk to you, JJ, because now I'm looking at I've been out of college now for over 20 years,
yeah.
and these are all my friends that I made. We crossed spring in
Aw,
'97, so what is that? So 20, so going on 22 years. These have been the
yes,
people in my life. So,
that's
and I'm
sweet.
really blessed with that circle of friends.
The third aspect of Respect My Crown is accountability. So do your friends keep you accountable, or do you have the type of people around you that are like, hey, Lindsay, this isn't a good idea, or
For
can really
sure.
give you great advice? Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that are like, you've got food in your teeth, and I can't believe that you've been walking around all day and nobody told you you had the food in your teeth and you're dragging the toilet paper on the bottom of your shoe. And I think that that's so important, right?
Yes.
That people tell you the truth. And I do have, you know, for different ones, I go to them for different reasons. And if I am really, one of my girlfriends, Leslie, if I am really looking for just the unadulterated, the thing that I don't even want to hear truth, I'm going to
Yeah.
go to her about that. And yeah, for sure, there is like a lot of accountability, I would say, yeah, within the group. And I'm also really close with my parents, and they
Let's see.
definitely are going to, I mean, I'm still their baby girl, so they may not like see me and judge me the same way this cruel cold world does, but
Yes.
they're definitely going to give me a bit of that honesty serum as well.
That's wonderful. And the last element is service. So what are maybe some of the ways that you give back to the world?
Well, what I need to get back to doing more, which I was doing a lot in Indianapolis, and then like pretty much the first 5 years that I was here in New York, but a prison ministry. So I started a prison ministry at the church that I was attending in
Really?
Indianapolis, and that went really so well. It was at a juvenile detention center in Indianapolis, and we would deal with just the girls, and it was so fulfilling in a way that I actually initially set out thinking like, oh, we are going to be such a blessing for these girls, but in the end, I mean, the girls filled us
Yeah.
with just keeping in mind. I think sometimes it's so easy to disappear into your own world and really forget about what life is like for some people, and the struggle that is day to day for people all the time. I mean, struggle,
Yeah.
everybody has struggle, right? But struggle is different when you don't have to worry about when your next meal is coming from. You don't have to worry that you're going to be like
Right.
molested by a relative.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, different people feel struggle obviously in different ways, but there was just a lot of just a reminder for me about why it's so important to just do God's work in that way, and it was just so rewarding. And so when I got to New York, it was a little more difficult, just a lot more red tape in doing it. And so I did it maybe again for like the first 5 years, and since I've had my son, kind of gotten away from it because I'm so involved with work often, and then the rest of my time I'm trying to pour into him and just get the time
Oh
with my
yeah.
son.
It
But what
changed
I
everything.
do It changes everything totally. But what I do, my family, my husband, my son, and we're getting my son in on the act very early. This will be our third year coming up this first Saturday in December, where I paired up with a women's shelter in Harlem, and we give them a Christmas that they otherwise wouldn't have, and just I get all my family and friends, and it's really become like a whole big thing. And we adopt a family or two families, and we get the moms to give the kids wish list ahead of time. And last year we got a company sponsor, and they were giving the kids bikes and whatever. And now in the end, I thought it didn't really work out how I thought, because like in New York City, giving kids bikes. Doesn't really, they don't really have like a place to ride the bike. Yeah. Stuff, right. But that is one way. So we're trying to mainly show our son, who thinks kind of like, can I have this toy today? I want this toy today. And it just like poof, magic appears that, it's not really like that. For many kids, and so he has to kind of donate some of his toys as well, and he goes out shopping with us for other kids, and so hopefully it's teaching him a lesson and giving him again that foundation of wanting to give and be charitable. I think that's really super important, and that's just one annual event, but I would like to do more and constantly feel that I do need to do more. But that's at least the one thing each year that at least I feel like I'm actually doing what God would want me to do in that way.
Making a great impact. Very good. Very good. Lindsey, we always end with having our guests give an affirmation. Maybe there's something that you say to yourself or something that you feel like other women need to tell themselves every day.
I think, at the risk of being redundant, I think it would be, I am enough. I am enough. Yeah. I think that quite often we just don't feel or hear or believe whatever the issue is, the disconnect, just always feeling that. And that's the flip side, because I agree with you. Like, social media is great for a number of reasons, but I think that quite often, what people talk about, like how they're living their best lives or whatever. And so, like with social media, for example, you can kind of get caught up in the keeping up with the Joneses and like, I guess I should be doing that. And I guess like I'm not enough in this way, or that person's so happy because, look at their big smiles, but they're just posting like the happy bright spots, right? They're not posting the picture quite often of the drama that they just went through to get to that smile. But but I think just feeling like you're enough. I think that's the mantra.
I love it. I am enough. Linsey Davis, thank you so much for being a part of our show. Be sure to pick up her book, The World is Awake. It is on Amazon. You can get to Barnes and Noble and grab her book that way. Thank you so much for talking to the ladies today.
Well, I just thank you for having me continue to be a part of your circle. And again, with the social media, the upside of it, that I'm able to just see you and I'm like, wow, you literally glow. Now, I don't know if that's a filter, but you look great and you just emanate greatness, and I'm just so proud to know you and that we have kept in touch and that you have lifted me up as well, like, having me on with the radio and whatever. And it's just been just a blessing, to know you and just stay connected. So I thank you.
Thank you. Same here. I'm so proud of you. And then the next time I'm in New York, I have to reach out so that
definitely.
I can come see you and hang out.
We'll wear our crowns together and drink out of some goblets and wear our crowns.
That's right. I love it. Well, Lindsey, have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. You also, JJ. Be blessed.